Shortly before he was executed, after more than a decade of denying any part in any crimes, Ted Bundy confessed to 30 homicides in a 4-year span across 7 different states. The real victim count is unknown, but it is expected to be much higher. Bundy received 3 death sentences in 2 separate trials for the murders that he committed in Florida alone. After being incarcerated for 11 years, he was finally sent to the electric chair. Imagine that you are a family member of one of the 30 or more girls that he had kidnapped, raped, and slaughtered. Would anything less than the death penalty have been sufficient for the pain that he caused your loved one? Capital punishment, or the death penalty, is defined as being the legally authorized killing of someone as punishment for a crime. The crimes you have to commit to be worthy of a death penalty include first-degree murder, aggravated murder, and capital murder. Some states allow the death penalty for kidnap or sexual assault. New Hampshire even allows the death penalty for someone who has killed a police officer. As of October 1st of last year, there were 3,035 inmates on death row in the United States alone. 32 states have decided that the death penalty should be used, whereas only 18 states have thought differently. Texas has had more executions than anywhere else in the country, topping off at an average of 21 executions per year since 2007. At that rate, by the end of this year, Texas will have executed approximately 168 people in the past 5 years alone who have committed heinous, despicable crimes, ensuring that they will never again harm anybody or their families the way that they harmed their previous victims and their previous victims' families. John Stuart Mill, an English philosopher, once said, "Does fining a criminal show want of respect for property, or imprisoning him for personal freedom? Just as unreasonable is it to think that to take the life of a man who has taken that of another is to show want of regard for human life. We show, on the contrary, most emphatically our regard for it, by the adoption of a rule that he who violates this right in another forfeits it for himself." The death penalty provides the ultimate warning to all criminals and would-be criminals. In some cases, death is the only thing these people fear. Giving somebody life in prison just isn't as much of a deterrent as the death penalty is. I asked you earlier to imagine that you were a family member of one of the many women Ted Bundy obliterated from this earth. He stalked his victims. He sometimes took them in alleyways when they were 20 feet from their homes. He would grab them, sometimes pretending to be crippled, with his arm in a sling or in crutches. While they were this close to their homes, he would take them, and he would throw them in his car, and they were never to be seen again. Would you have accepted his sentence if he received a life in prison sentence? But what if he had come up for parole? The death penalty, aside from being a major deterrent, provides the ultimate closure for victims and their families. What better way to punish murder than with death? An eye for an eye has long been practiced in our world, which makes the death penalty the best answer for murder. While some people think that the death penalty is cruel, it really isn't. Every effort is made to ensure that these people's deaths will be quick and relatively painless. Some people think that if there's any pain involved, then it's unconstitutional. But that begs the question, what about the pain that these people caused many others? 60% of Americans that were surveyed said that they do support the death penalty. However, the other 40% who oppose it are much more vocal about their opposition than the supporters are. They argue that the death penalty doesn't teach anybody anything. They don't think that capital punishment actually dissuades anybody from committing any crimes. Another opposition point is that they think the death penalty is hypocritical. They view it the same way some people see spanking when you're trying to teach a child not to hit. But is that really the case? Ken Scheidegger, the top lawyer at the Criminal Justice Legal Foundation, has said, "What happened is, the people doing studies finding deterrence have sort of given it up because they're being attacked. And the people who are ideologically driven to oppose the death penalty keep pumping out papers. While the majority of people do claim to believe in the death penalty, they're not speaking up about it, whereas those who oppose it can't shut up about it. Does that mean that capital punishment is wrong simply because the opposition is louder than the supporters? Or does this fall into the line of thinking that closed-minded people often come with open mouths? Maybe some changes need to be made. It is possible to meet the critics halfway, by giving them some peace of mind. Capital punishment should only be admissible if you can prove beyond 100%, beyond reasonable doubt, that the defendant is guilty of the crime that they are being charged with. Another worry that the opposition has is the cost of keeping inmates on death row. In order to deal with this, we should execute people on death row much faster than we do now, which would not only clear up space in prisons all over the country, but would also save taxpayers a lot of money. You may be asking what you personally can do about this situation. It's difficult to say, because aside from asking you not to oppose the death penalty, there's not much you can do. If you felt so inclined, you could go out and be a strong supporter for the death penalty. You can make your stance clear. Don't allow people who hurt other people to waste our tax-paying dollars. In a world where crime runs rampant, we can't allow any question as to whether victims and their families will receive retribution for the things that have happened to them. We can't give rapists and murderers the freedom to go out and commit these crimes again, as they surely will. Andrew Dawson was given a life sentence in 1982 after he killed a 91-year-old man by stabbing him a dozen times with a bread knife. In 2010, he was released from prison. A few weeks after his release, he stabbed 2 more men in their homes, leaving them dead in their bathtubs. Andrew Dawson is not the only example of a botched view of a life sentence, and he is not the only example of a released killer who has killed again. John Matthews and Paul Hancock, Dawson's victims after his release from prison, would still be alive today if he had been given the death penalty in 1982, instead of simply a slap on the wrist or a life sentence that was somehow reduced to 28 years. Their deaths surely weigh on the shoulders of those who released him in the first place. We cannot allow ourselves to be weighed down by the deaths of innocent people. We need to ensure that these people, who have proven time and time again that they are deadly, will never hurt anybody again. The death penalty is the only way that we can save lives while providing peace of mind for people all over the country who fear that they may become victims of serial killers, or any killer. If a dog killed someone, can you imagine how quickly it would be put down? Why should a human, who unlike an animal actually knows the difference between right and wrong, who kills another human, be treated any differently? Some people deserve to be executed for what they've done to others. Why should we show mercy to people who clearly showed no mercy to others?